Welcome to another episode of Bits and Bytes. This time we have our special guest, Spiro from the Gaming Stadium. So Spiro, I just want to, open the floor. How about you introduce yourself to some of our listeners?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. My name is Spiro, as you mentioned, CEO of the Gaming Stadium. And so, just a bit of background on me personally. I mean, I'm a gamer. I've been one my whole life. I got my first Nintendo when I was 5 years old, and I haven't really put down a controller or today a keyboard since. So to me, gaming has always been a passion of mine. I've had the luxury of working at EA as part of my history, and be able to be part of a marketing team to promote a game kind of on the back end. And then, in 2011, 2012, started to get exposed to esports and really said, this is something that in my opinion has some legs. At the time, it was like, we just called it competitive gaming. I didn't know what the term esports meant. And then started to follow that as a passion, which led us to where we are now with the Gaming Stadium. So for me, what I do on a day-to-day basis is purely born out of passion, and a love for the industry and what it does.
Awesome. And so for those that might not be familiar with the Gaming Stadium, do you want to just give us an explanation of what it is and the impact that the Gaming Stadium has, especially in the esports culture?
Yeah, for sure. So the Gaming Stadium as a facility was developed in 2018. And so originally the concept was a facility where people could come and play games. I mean, for those of us that are a bit older, we grew up with arcades. There are still some now. There's a rec room opening in Burnaby, hopefully fairly soon. But when I grew up, every mall had an arcade, and everywhere had a place where you could go and play, because not everybody could afford to buy the equipment that was needed to participate, or couldn't afford to buy every single game that came out. And so when the original concept for the Gaming Stadium was put together, it was an opportunity for those that needed a place to play, whether it was due to financial reasons, couldn't afford a PC or couldn't afford equipment, or again buying every game, or for those that were just looking to get out of their house every once in a while. I mean, I think we all know the online gaming culture can sometimes not be the greatest. Toxic is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, and so when you bring that experience in person, it creates a totally different environment. And so in 2018, we came up with the idea of developing a facility to accomplish those goals. As time went on, our philosophy of what we wanted it to be changed, and what we ended up settling on after a lot of consultation and discussions with the community was basically building a community center, which is what we have. And our whole thought process is, when you go to a traditional community center, there's basically high level two things you can do. Number one, you can go any day of the week and you can pay a fee to go in and use their facility. There's a gym, there's typically a fitness center, there might be a yoga studio, there might be a daycare, whatever the case may be. However, on top of the everyday uses, they have very specific programming that they do throughout the week. So they'll do drop-in basketball on a Wednesday. They'll do yoga class on a Thursday morning. I have a 2-year-old son, and our local community center every Thursday afternoon, pre-COVID of course, did a drop-in playtime where the gymnasium would be filled with like cars and play mats and all these fun things. And those are meant to build community. And so with the Gaming Stadium, we basically took that concept and brought gaming as the conduit. So 7 days a week, anybody can walk into our facility, pay a fee, and utilize our equipment however they see fit. We're open all the time for anyone who wants to just come in. But most days, 5 days a week, before we closed due to COVID, we would actually run specific tournaments to drive that community, whether that was Fortnite or Counter-Strike or Valorant or whatever the case may be. And the reason was, we wanted to develop a social community utilizing video games as the conduit to bring those people together. And when you have that layout and that setup, it allows people to walk into a place where they don't know anyone, but instantly have something in common with them. And so you're able to get people to engage in conversation and build friendship and build loyalty through a video game, which is a pretty magical thing. So, again, 2018 was one concept. Where we are today is different. We opened our facility in Richmond in June of 2019. So as a company, we've been running events out of TGS since then. And then, of course, since March, due to COVID, have been focused mostly in the online space.
Awesome. Yeah. And so the gaming scene, when you were first developing this community center for gamers, like what were some of the challenges you faced? Because I know this is the first of its kind, especially in Canada.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, what were some of the things that you were just not expecting, or some things that like were just so out of the blue, or what were some of the challenges that you expected to come, and how did you handle all of those?
Yeah, I mean, there's a long list of them. So at the start, if you go back to like pre-construction, you're dealing with architects and construction companies that have never done something like this before. And so when you're laying the foundation for your internet or your power drops, or even just where the screens are going to go, where the microphones are going to be, where the speakers are facing, everything is from scratch. And so there's a lot of back and forth in developing those entities to ensure that they meet the requirements that we as a gaming facility need. So that was the challenge. Was the challenge at the start was that once we got ready to open, the challenge then became systems. So when you go to a hotel, for example, when you go to check in, they have a fully integrated system, right? They check you in. Let's say you book online, you check in at the hotel, you walk into your room, you turn on the TV, it says, hi, blah blah blah. Thanks for booking this hotel. We hope you enjoy your stay. Room service. If you go to restaurants, and it's all correlated in one system. That doesn't really exist for us. So we were using like Google Drive. We were using, we have a POS system. We use Square as our POS system. We have 2 to 3 different tournament, third-party tournament providers that we use. So it was a mishmash of getting a bunch of different things that did one thing really well and trying to get them to speak to each other to make sure that the overall guest experience was really good. And at the beginning, that was a challenge, a huge challenge. Now, we've come a long way, but we came a long way because the first 3 to 6 months that we were open, it was a learning experience, taking feedback from our guests, and going from there. The last challenge, which is more gaming related, was was an interesting one, and it was not in advance because we hadn't had to do this before. White labeling our IP, and so basically, what happened was like. We put on a tournament. I believe, oh man, the game is escaping me. I want to say it was Apex, or it could have been Fortnite. Oh, there were two different issues. So number one was Apex. We were at an Apex tournament, and too many people signed in from one location. And so when
Oh.
that happens, the developer or the servers on EA side assume that someone's trying to hack their system, and so they shut out that whole IP address. And so we had to get on the phone, and it took us quite a while, but we managed to get it back online. So we learned right there that when we're doing large tournaments, because it's coming from one connection, up to 60 people playing at once, we have to white label our IP address. That was a massive learning. And then on the other side, it's the same thing with Steam. So when you have a few different failed login attempts on Steam, it shuts you out for a period of time. It says up to 30 minutes. Sometimes it's quicker. And so we had a Fortnite tournament where one person tried to log in 5 or 6 times, and it shut them out. Now, the problem is because it was all one IP address, everybody got shut out from Steam.
Oh
And
no.
so, yeah, so literally the only thing you can do at that point is like sit back and wait until that person's account has been reset and then log in. So now we have like a rule where if you've tried logging in 3 times and it doesn't work, reset your password. Because like white labeling an IP address with Steam is a much more difficult proposition than just going to a developer and saying like, here's our IP address, or we have 2 or 3, and we're running this tournament on this day. So if you see a bunch of signups, this is why. So though, a lot of different challenges, but all very interesting to learn. And we couldn't have done them if we didn't experience it and then learn from it.
Yeah.
So actually, like what you talked about, and in past episodes we've interviewed different entrepreneurs, like a lot of failure like does build a better product over time. And I think this is not no longer an opinion. I think it's fact. But like for you guys with events and very public, I guess I hesitate to call it mistakes, but like you call it learning. Like what mentally gets you keep going to actually try and do it again? Because when you're running a 60 man tournament, it shuts down completely. Like, it's gotta, you're human, right? So like what kind of gets you to do another Apex tournament?
Yeah. Well, I think with anyone who's a tournament organizer, specifically in this space, it's the desire to be better. Like that's what I think everybody aspires, right? They aspire to put on the perfect tournament. They aspire to put on the event that doesn't have hiccups that everybody loves. And so for us, when we see an opportunity like that, we say, okay, um, we know we messed up, even though it wasn't really our fault. We could have done more in advance. So it's like, okay, if this is the only thing that goes wrong in this tournament, then that's an amazing thing because we can fix this problem, right? So for us, Sam, it's like it's the desire to be better and the desire to be perfect. The other thing is, as a company that specializes in putting tournaments on, like we're judged solely on that experience. And so if we do a bad one, there are basically two options. Number one, take our ball and go home, or number two is make it better so that community doesn't turn against us or doesn't have a negative view of who we are. If as a company that's focused on doing that thing, if we can't fix it, then we're nothing. And the comparable to that is like, if you go to a restaurant and you wait like 45 minutes or an hour for your burger, and then the burger comes and the burger's like pretty good enough to the point where you say, okay, I'm going to give this place another chance. Like that restaurant has two options, right? They can close their doors because they can't get a burger ready in 45 minutes or less, or number two is they can create a system or a process that makes it better the next time. And then when you go back the next time and have a better experience, then you're hopeful that like, okay, now my fries are still warm or my Coke is cold or whatever the case may be. So it's just a desire to get better, and it's a necessity of our business. So it's not fun, dude. Like it sucks. It sucks. The other thing we do is we do our best to reward people. So like during that, so the Apex one's a pretty funny story. When that happened, we didn't know how long it was going to take to come back online. So we're lucky to have some tremendous partners. So this one took place at a third-party venue in Burnaby near Metrotown. And so we called Memory Express, who are an amazing partner of ours, and said, hey, we've just kind of had a blow up here. Can we run to the store on Kingsway and pick up a bunch of stuff? And they said, yeah. So we went and we grabbed like 3 keyboards, a bunch of headsets, some mice, a bunch of equipment. We went back to the venue. This is within maybe 30 to 45 minutes. And we had everyone that was playing put their names in a hat, and we just did a draw for prizing. It helped fill the time, but it also let our guests know that we were trying to work on the problem, but we cared enough about them that we were willing to invest money in giving stuff away to make their experience better. And so there are things you can do to alleviate those issues. You just have to basically have gone through them to know what you have to do to counteract a potential problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, do you think people, especially like, I think we describe them as early adopters, people that, are giving you a shot and maybe they've never heard of gaming stadium before. Are they usually, more understanding that this whole space is new, or what's your experience been like on that?
All about communication. So the key to any successful partnership or relationship is communication. And so for us, when we're putting on a tournament, we're constantly speaking to the people that are playing in it to make sure they understand exactly what's going on. And that can be, again, in person. We've got tournament organizers everywhere, and we always tell them the truth, right? Oh, this is what happened. It's an IP address problem, and we're trying to fix it. We're on the phone with EA, right away they know it's not our mistake, or if it is our mistake, it's an oversight that's acceptable. But you have to communicate. Now, because of COVID and what we're doing with online, everything is run through Discord. Like every tournament, if you're playing in it, you have to be a part of that community in our Discord, because that's where all the communication takes place. So what we have found is when you talk to people and have a conversation with them, and most importantly are transparent, they tend to understand and are willing to give you another chance. You're going to get those people who come on and say your tournament sucks and we're never coming back, and that's okay. That's their opinion. Can't fix everything, but we have a huge emphasis on communication, and that usually helps solve most of any potential issues.
Yeah, definitely. Communication is always key. Anyway,
Yeah,
you fly
100%.
for sure.
Yep.
So kind of like going on about esports too, like what do you think of like the esports industry like in Vancouver? Because I know Vancouver is known to be, has a growing gaming sector.
Mm-hmm.
Like our gaming industry is quite strong, you would say, across Canada. What about the esports section particularly?
Yeah, so Vancouver is on the precipice of being like in my opinion, Canadian, North American, even global leader in the space. And so number one, obviously, we're happy to be a part of that puzzle with our facility. Number two, we're blessed to have a professional Overwatch team that plays out of Vancouver. Number three, if you look at some of the things that are happening, so like back in February, we announced an event called TGX, the gaming experience, that was supposed to take place in September. It's obviously been postponed to next year, which was a 100,000 square foot plus esports and gaming convention at the Vancouver Convention Center over 3 days. Like, that's in partnership with the Vancouver Convention Center. So like, those guys are really leading the way and trying to bring esports events to Vancouver. So would have been awesome in September, but will be huge for the city. Also, the Vancouver Economic Commission. So the Vancouver Economic Commission, they went out and were able to bring on someone by the name of Sean, who's basically writing a paper and a report for the federal government that talks about esports in our landscape, and then how the government can potentially help that grow. But that's being headed here in Vancouver. You look at groups like Vancouver Street Battle. You look at all of these amazing organizations that have been around for a while and what they're doing to develop community. I think that people don't realize how much actually already happens and exists in Vancouver, that they're looking to, try to grow. We held the International here a couple of years ago. Like, that's a huge accomplishment, right? And it went extremely well. We've held LCS Spring Finals twice now, I believe. I think it was 2014 and maybe 2015. I can't remember if it was 14 and 15, but we've held that now. And so as a city, we're lucky. And I know that there are organizations, big organizations, that are looking to bring events to Vancouver. If you take it a step further, you've got events like LTX, Linus Tech Expo, which is a massive event that happens here every year, put on by the Linus Media Group. Last year, for the first year, they partnered with DreamHack, and they had an esports activation as part of LTX. So there's so many different things that are happening in the city. I think people don't realize, maybe because they're not paying as much attention, but I think the development and growth here is like, literally, like, we're on the precipice of becoming like one of those key markets for esports, specifically Canada, and then of course North America and beyond.
So I think there's a couple of things there. Like, I guess one, how has this happened, and two, like, what do you think the public opinion of it is? Because in my opinion, esports is still early. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the people that are involved, you included, like, it to some degrees you are taking a risk on the industry itself. But like, what's the public perception right now? And I think it ties into a lot with not just esports gaming, but gaming in general, and youth, and the perception of gaming, right? Because when you and I growing up, I don't know your parents at all, right? But my parents always like, study more, game less, right? Like, yeah, it's a very general statement that I don't think I'm breaking any barriers here by saying.
Yeah, totally.
But like, what do you think how has this happened, and like, what needs to happen for it to continue to grow? And I guess specifically talking about our, localized community here.
Yeah. So I think, so the localized community is one thing, and then there's the greater community that has affected it as well. So the localized community, for me, it starts at the core of what's happening in secondary and post-secondary schools. So UBC has had an esports club for a long time, and one of the best in North America. I mean, they're constantly reaching the finals or getting really close to that in League of Legends. They have an amazing League of Legends team, but their esports club is growing. SFU recently adopted an esports club and have started. Last year, Langara announced an esports club that just got started. If you look at high schools, in this year alone, TGS has interacted with 20 different high schools across the Lower Mainland, whether it's we went to a school in Coquitlam and produced a League of Legends finals at their school that featured 6 high schools that were in the region. We work with the Metro Vancouver Secondary School Esports Association and putting on events with them. So when you look at that, it's now becoming like a secondary part of a curriculum, where it's not part of like, your math and your sciences and whatnot, but it's an option for people to engage with in a high school and a university level. And that's huge for development. That's kind of where it started for me. The other thing that I don't think we can discount is just general communication. Like, when we were growing up, there wasn't a lot of information readily accessible about anything, let alone this industry. And so now, like, parents have the ability to research, right? And so when I talk about internationally, there's one thing in particular that was a massive catalyst for us when it came to engaging with parents, and that was the Fortnite World Cup. So when the Fortnite World Cup happened and two 14-year-olds won the duos tournament, and then Booga, a 16-year-old, won, whatever he won, I don't even remember, 3 million or maybe more, I can't remember. That opened up a lot of eyes because it was on TV. It was an international event. It was held at Arthur Ashe Stadium, where the U.S. Open tennis match played in New York. The prize pools were insane, and the people winning were young. And if you remember when Booga won, the first scene are his parents in the audience, like cheering and going crazy. And so when stuff like that happens, CNN covered it, ESPN covered it, Yahoo covered it, all of these major outlets covered it. Like, now our parents who are reading their news on a daily basis are now seeing this, and it's like, oh my gosh, like my son is playing a game where this kid just won 3 million. And so it's just about that general overall exposure. In terms of development, I think having game studios in Vancouver has been a huge boon to us. EA's been here forever, and almost everyone that lives here knows EA has a massive campus in Burnaby. And so there's a direct correlation already inherently with Vancouver and video games, so it makes the communication here easier than I think in a lot of other places.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I personally know from parents not understanding the gaming world. Like when I, growing up as a kid, gaming's fine, but they're always like, oh, don't play too much, focus on your studies, and gaming's bad for your health. And then now it's like really awesome to see that there's a generation merge now. Like parents are having kids, and their parents already were gamers, so they're introducing their children to gaming. And personally speaking, like when I started, I stream sometimes, not as much anymore, but when I first started streaming, my parents were just like, what are you doing? What is this? And when they finally see that I was, getting traction, getting some money off of this, they're like, you know what? This is cool. Definitely it's really cool to see that open-mindedness now a lot more.
Yeah, it's like I think your point is so well made. Like I said, I've got a 2-year-old son, right? And and so I've got in my office I've got a bunch of gaming paraphernalia, and so he's getting exposed to that at a really young age. But the other thing he's doing is like he'll pick up a controller that's not connected to anything and just mash the buttons, or he'll watch me when I'm watching Twitch streams, or I bought these two mini arcade cabinets, they're 8-inch arcade cabinets or whatever, Bubble Bobble, and he'll just he'll mash the buttons and the characters on screen do something. And because I grew up with gaming, it's easy for me to have that conversation. But the gaming stadium early recognized that not everybody's in that situation. So we actually put a plan in place to combat that. So anyone who comes to our facility, there's basically 2 ways that you can engage with us. Number one is you pay a fee. And that fee is if you want to use our equipment or play in a tournament. It's pretty simple. But if you're coming to our stadium just to hang out, to watch your child play, or your brother or your sister, we actually don't charge a penny. And the reason we did that is we don't want there to be any barrier to entry for anyone who's coming to visit us. We want to engage people. We want to have conversation. We want to expose people to what our industry is all about. It's not a bunch of people bullying people. It's not a bunch of negativity. It's friends getting together and using a form of escapism to connect in a way that, in my opinion, hasn't been available up until the last few years. And so I think the more we can engage the parents that may not understand, and the more we can educate them, the better it's going to be long term.
Yeah. And do you think from a parent standpoint too, if, there's parents watching this and hesitant about allowing their kids play too much games, what do you think are some of the practical benefits there are for the children to get into gaming?
Yeah. Oh my God. There's so many. So it depends on the game, but let's take Counter-Strike as an example, or Valorant. The economy and the decision making is so crucial to development. If you think about it, you've got a very finite amount of time to make a decision of how you want to spend your money and what you're going to spend your money on and how it's going to benefit your team. But also in those games, how can I help? So if this guy doesn't have enough money, can I buy something and send it to him and then buy something? That decision making with actual economy is so crucial in long-term development. But people, when you do it in gaming, it's fun, right? So you don't feel like you're learning. And so it's a great way to expose people to how to understand how a basic economy of buying and selling things works. On top of that, communication. So when you're playing a team-based game, communication is of the utmost importance. We all know that, right? And so you're doing it through a game and you're learning how to communicate. So, I mentioned to you guys earlier before we were alive that I'm a PUBG loyalist, right? And so when you're playing a game like that, you can't just say, oh, there's a guy to the left, there's a guy to the right, because everyone's looking a different direction. You've got to, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
you've got to call out like a specific, like, oh, he's
Agree.
west 260 behind this rock that's next to this big Christmas tree. Like, you've got to call stuff out. And so it's teaching you how to communicate effectively with your teammates. And so, I mean, those are two really quick examples, but there are so many of these on a daily basis that can really help young people learn. And so I think, to be honest, we're going to see gamification of the curriculum in schools as the next step in student development, because it allows students to learn while playing a game, so it doesn't feel like learning. I think that's the next like generation of learning, is digital learning through gamification. But video games are already doing that all the time.
Yeah,
I mean-
I think part of it is, sorry to cut you off, is like, I think gaming does get a bad rap, because I think we immediately, when Gina and I was talking about our experiences, just like we immediately go to things like being antisocial, going to video game addiction, and toxicity, even like, and I don't want to say all those things are not there. They are 100% there.
Yep.
But these are also there in pretty much every aspect of anything. Like, is there bullying in school? Yeah, but you don't stop going to school because there's bullying, right? Like, you teach your kids to combat that, to build self-esteem, self-worth, those kind of things. Like, and to me, like, I think throwing a child in, and I don't have any children, so maybe I'm speaking out of line, but throwing a child in front of a game, like, that isn't parenting. You have to teach them like what's going on, right? Like, the role of parents still needs to be there, right? As opposed to just leave them there for 10 hours a day. Of course they're going to get addicted. This is all they know.
Yeah, totally agree. So it's such a good point. So when we were leading up to opening, we actually put on a bunch of events in and around the city, and that was meant to engage people. So one of the events that we did was about a month after we opened, we took over the center court at Metrotown on a Saturday, and we had like a free to play. So we had I think 20 PCs and 10 Nintendo Switches, and it was anyone who was at the mall that day could just come and play. And so we were engaging with parents who asked us the same question, and so our response is the same every time. Say, okay, does your child partake in hobbies? Yes. What do they do? My daughter plays piano. Does she play piano for 10 hours a day? Well, no, of course not. Well, then why is it okay on the gaming side? Like, oh, my son plays hockey. Well, if he just skates for 10 hours a day, is that going to make him a better hockey player? Well, no, of course not. So it's the same philosophy. Like, if you treat gaming as a hobby like any other hobby, as parents, we need to do our part in making sure that we're monitoring that that's not happening for far too long. But that's like a parent by parent thing. Some parents are okay with it. I mean, my wife and I, we have a strict rule about how many hours of cartoons a day our son can watch, because, for development, is it good or bad? It's up to the individual to make that determination. But it's the same with gaming. Like, parameters have to be set around it. It can be treated as a reward mechanism, but I also think people need to understand, like, it's not the negativity that a lot of people will paint it out to be. There are a tremendous amount of positives, and we focus on the positives, and it's about talking about it and telling those stories and educating people on what it is. That's why we love talking. That's why we do all these events. That's why we go out, because it's important for us to engage the parents so they have an understanding. The other thing that we do on our end is we have a 2-tiered approval system. So if you're under the age of 18 and you're playing in a tournament, you have to get a waiver signed by a parent to play. And then if you actually win a prize, your parent also has to sign a waiver releasing that prize to you. And that's so the parent is engaged every step of the way. And if they have questions, they can ask us. And if they feel like this isn't set up well for their child to play in, then they simply don't sign. It's like going on a field trip, right? I don't want my kid to go here. Okay, then don't sign the paper and they can stay and do homework, like whatever, right? So, yeah. So there's a lot to unpack, in this conversation. But I think it's important that we take a positive approach and we educate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even nowadays too, like I just branching off of the earlier comment about gamification being kind of like part of the new education system. I believe like as a post-secondary, I think it is like university colleges, like they're even offering like esports or gaming related courses now. Like it's becoming, we already started seeing those changes. I don't know if it's happening yet in Vancouver. I hope it does. But
It is. So, Vancouver Animation School, or Van
uh-huh.
S, as they're called, they actually launched last year an esports management program. So
Wow.
I think it's a 4-week diploma, so a really short course, or it's like a 4 to 6 month like mini degree. They just launched it. Like I think it launched maybe January this year or late last year. They're the first ones that I have seen that are actually offering like a paid curriculum around the business and the management of esport. But in our conversations, like we've been talking to groups all over the world, and I know it's a huge part of some businesses that are going to be coming up fairly soon. But I think a lot of them are looking to monetize on extracurricular. So looking to monetize on a program outside of your traditional university where you can sign up for maybe a virtual course and get like a diploma from an accredited school, but not as part of an accredited program. Like it's just its own thing kind of off to the side. Doesn't count for credits or whatever. But it's starting. And in Vancouver, the only school I know right now is the Vancouver Animation School. They're the ones that have that program, and it's all digital. It's all virtual, so it's great.
Wow, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, some of the the questions we had. If you were able to create your own dream team, let's say they had to work for you at the gaming stadium, but the only restriction is that they had to be pro gamers. Who would you choose and why?
His answer is going to be very specific to a very small bunch of people that are going to understand his answer.
How many? How
And
many am I saying here?
they're going to be so angry at him,
I
whatever he
know.
says.
How many am I picking here? Like
Let's
2, 3?
let's say three. Let's say three.
Okay, so top of my list is Nade Shot. Uh, just
So give some context. Who's Nate?
Sure. So Nade Shot is a former professional Call of Duty player. He was one of the catalysts in making Optic Gaming, at the time, the biggest esports org in the world. He has since retired, and he started an organization called 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves, for those that don't know, are really, in my opinion, the first esports brand to transcend professional teams and actually penetrate pop culture. They're streetwear driven. When they announced their pop-up shop in LA, they had a lineup of 500 people and it sold out in like an hour, all their merchandise. They have an amazing content team with Courage and Pokimane and some other people. Or sorry, not Pokimane, Valkyrie is on their team. So they've got an amazing group of people, and Nade Shot basically took his experiences as a pro gamer and transition that into leading an organization. He's now the CEO of them. They're valued in the hundreds of millions, but he has a tremendous vision, and his vision is to create an all-encompassing brand as opposed to focusing on just being a really good Call of Duty player or Call of Duty team. So he would be like my first, just because he's proven that he can do it as a player and as a leader of an organization. And I'm just a huge fan of what they've built as a brand. So he would be number one. Number two would be someone who's more on the business side. It would be Rick Fox. Rick Fox, for those that don't know, a multi-time NBA champion with the LA Lakers, was the first real celebrity to invest in esports. He's got an amazing story. His son was huge into League of Legends and took him to a League of Legends match. And he watched it. I think it was at Madison Square Garden, or maybe Staples Center, one of the two. Fell in love with it, and literally, like when their plane landed back home, he bumped into another team owner and was convinced on the spot to basically start a team. And he's a huge proponent for esports. He's still, as he says, stuck in the iron basement when it comes to League of Legends, but his personality and his drive to make esports a better place is something that I would love to be able to tap into.
He's Canadian too.
He's Canadian.
Oh.
Yeah. He's Canadian. So I ran into him at an event coincidentally, and we had an amazing conversation around esports and just kind of, this was post Echo Fox, amazing conversation just around esports and the Canadian landscape. And so, just a great mind and someone who really believes in this industry. So that's somebody that I would definitely love to have on my team. And then, the third person is tough because there's a few different ones that I'd like to have here, but I think for me, the third person would probably be my favorite streamer, just because they're really good at games, but also good at engaging people, and that's Choco Taco. I don't know if anyone really knows who he is, but Choco Taco is a PUBG streamer. So nobody probably knows who he is because no one plays that game anymore except for me. But Choco is he's an amazing player. He's super engaging, but most importantly, he understands how to represent brands, and he understands how to work with partners and sponsors to make sure that their brand is being presented in a way that really puts them at the forefront. So if you look at kind of like the team that I would build, Nate Shot would kind of be more focused on like the business development and growing the overall company. Rick Fox would be the one that would be like the passion, and he would be the one to bring in the right people to help elevate us to another level. And then Chaco would be the one to really take some of our partners and brands that we deal with and integrate them in a fun and creative way to really get them to really feel like they have an affinity towards our brand as a partner. So that would be like my all-star celebrity team, I think.
Yeah, no, that definitely sounds like a pretty top tier all-star team.
Yeah.
If that question came to me, I'd just be like, I don't even know where I would start.
I mean, it would be cool to have like Faker or Double Lift or like or someone like Bumper just because he's so funny. It would be cool to have people like that, but like the context was business, right? So I was trying to think of people who would like help advance our company, and that's kind of what I went off. Yeah. But there are a lot of really good, like, I don't think there's any wrong answer here. I think you're just gonna get people who don't think that your answer is as good as theirs, right? So.
Oh yeah, there's probably going to be people that disagree.
Like I said, very few people are going to understand what we just talked about, but those few people will have very passionate opinions about it.
Oh yeah, they're going to say I'm wrong and I'm an idiot and whatever. It's all good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of going back to gaming stadium then. So like, you talked with COVID and everything, obviously there's going to be a lot more restrictions on some of the community events and everything that you can do right now. Mm-hmm. Are there any, virtual events that you have planned or anything that, locally or online that people can participate in if they want to keep in touch?
Totally. Yeah. So when COVID first hit, it was a shock to everyone. I think, at the beginning it was not really felt in Canada or North America, right? And so it hadn't hit us specifically yet. And then when it came really fast. And so, we made the decision to close our doors. And I'm really proud of our team because 5 days after we closed our doors, we ran our first online tournament. And so our team was able to transition really quickly and was able to really take the ball and run with it. And this was back in March. Since then, we've been putting on multiple events every single month. A lot of them are with different partners. Currently we work with Memory Express, as I mentioned before. We work with 7-Eleven. We work with Daily Hive. We work with a few other brands, HyperX, Red Bull, Pepsi. So we're really lucky to have some partners that really are helping us as we go through this in terms of promoting these events. So the best place to go is always like our website, right? thegamingstadium.com or tgs.gg if you're lazy. And we have a whole events calendar and you can look it up. Coming up this month, we've got a $500, I believe, Rocket League tournament. We've got a huge Fortnite tournament. We've got a free-to-play $2,000 Valorant tournament, which is coming up on the 22nd and 23rd of August. And there's another one that I'm missing, but we've got some huge events coming up at the end of this month. And then in September and beyond, we're just going to continue to put on. Oh yeah, we've got a big FIFA tournament, on August 30th that's happening as well. So we listen to the community. We kind of try to find, the games that they want to see played and that they want to be a part of. But the biggest thing for us is how can we continue to engage the people who are loyal to our brand in a time where everyone's kind of stuck at home. We want to still be able to provide an outlet outlet and provide an opportunity for people to get that competitive experience, whether it's at a casual level or at a very serious level, but just get that experience. So we put on online tournaments like literally all the time. And we've got a great team that's willing to do more if the community comes and says they want more. So yeah.
Awesome. And I know I want to just wrap up this episode because there's a really burning question that I know Sam wanted me to ask you.
Yeah, you're trying to blame it on me.
So, what kind of beard oil do you use?
That's a good question. So,
never been asked that one, right?
You know what? That's a good question. So let me tell you guys a little story about like my beard. So I've had one for a long time. It's something that I've always kind of felt was like, I don't know. I don't know if it's just been like something that I've always wanted or I'm lazy or whatever the case may be, but I've always had one. But up until recently, it never really was a problem for me in terms of like maintaining because I always kept it kind of short. So I never really worried about like, it never got too itchy. It never got too scratchy. It was never anything like that. So to be honest, I haven't had to use any up until recently. And I just ordered some for the first time, and I don't even know the name of it because I just got it like a week ago. So I can't even really answer because up until a week ago, I never had to use it. I like what you guys can see me, but everyone else can't. Like this is the longest my beard has ever been, and it's actually extremely short still. So I've never really had to worry about it. I just trim it really short. I'm lame, shampoo and conditioner, just like my hair, and I haven't had any issues. But now that it's getting a bit bigger and it's getting a bit scratchy, is it's time for me to actually use some. So yeah, doesn't really answer your question, but yeah, I think it's called like Blackstone, Black Rock, something like that. Blackstone or Black Rock or Black Ridge or something. I can't remember. Yeah. Honestly, I went on Amazon and I did some research, and this one looked good, and it came with a cool wooden comb that smells amazing. And I was like, okay, this is good. It's $20, whatever. I'll just get this one. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Amazon is where I live for my e-commerce. So yeah, I trust them with my life.
Whatever the recommendations are. Right?
Yeah. So I just started using it like a week ago. But yeah, it doesn't smell that good, to be honest with you guys. My wife always complains. About the smell, so. Yeah, it
doesn't pass the sniff test.
No, it doesn't, and it's like it's kind of weird, and then it gets on your hands because you have to rub it in, and it's just so I don't use it that much. But it's actually good if I want to keep her away. So like if I want to play games and not be bothered, I'll just like lather it on, and it's like everyone leave me alone.
Official beard oil of TGS.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You want to be alone, use this stuff. Yeah.
This has been really fun. I know for a lot of people listening that don't know esports, don't know gaming, like this is all new to them, and I think I love that we're having this conversation because I think honestly, like I mean both Gene and I are kind of biased because we think gaming is seen in a bad rap, and I think it has there's some deep dive 50-year-old mismarketing down there somewhere, and I think it's just this really cool up and coming industry. Like I see it in the same way that I see blockchain or some of the other things that we talk about here on the show. But this has been really exciting for me. I don't know about you, Jane.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like ever since, when I was at SFU too, like I wanted to start my gaming club, and I saw like the potential there, and getting into the streaming industry as well. Like back then, like 10 years ago, like it was almost impossible to even like make revenue or anything. But nowadays, like streamers, they're literally celebrities, maybe even bigger. Like it's crazy how the different like tangents that the gaming industry has broken into. Esports, streaming, content creators, YouTubing. It's just amazing. I know that's going to keep growing from here. Like it's still really early, but 5 years down the road could be the next biggest thing.
Yeah. No, totally. I agree. It's exciting, and I appreciate you guys having me on here to talk about it. Like I said, in my opinion, Vancouver's at the forefront of something really special here. Mm-hmm. And I don't think COVID has slowed that down at all. I think it's just delayed it a little bit. And so, any chance we get to talk about esports is one that we'll take. again, we're fortunate to have an amazing, team based out of here, in the Titans. We're very fortunate to have some amazing podcasts like Ready Set Pwn, for example.
Oh, thanks for the plug.
Yeah. I mean, but hey, like it shows the depth and the passion of our community. And those are the kind of things that set us apart from a lot of other places. And so for me, the community is small, but extremely passionate and extremely knowledgeable. But the biggest thing about our community that I love is it's extremely inclusive. And so anyone who's out there that's looking to learn or understand about esports, like you can call someone and they'll talk to you and then connect you to 15 other people who you should talk to as well. And that's such a cool, unique thing that we're really lucky to have.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to have to wrap up the episode here, but thank you so much, Spiro, for your time and talking about esports, even talking a little bit about like parenting and gaming as well. I think that's a topic that, you might not see much everywhere else. And to all of those that are, Vancouver, check out the gaming stadium. It's a really great facility. I've been there a few times myself. They host really great events, charity to tournaments as well. For all of those that are maybe interested in getting into esports, like definitely take that time, look into it. Like it's a great industry for sure. Thank you so much, Spiro, for your time once again.
Awesome. Thanks guys for having me.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you on the next episode of Bits and Bytes. Bye, everyone.